But everyone has a different story to tell. Shell, which says it's losing it.
The Tampa market. Starting to rise.
In Northeast Africa, precisely on the Horn of Africa.
But the local farmers.
All right, sorry guys. Good morning. Once again, this is Frank. I am your host for the Revolutionary Repatriation Educational Lecture Series. We are here to expose and bring a solution to the African problem, both home and abroad. Once again, this is WCC, as usual. So before we start, as a tradition go, I just want to send out a shout out to all of you that have contributed or been contributing to the WCC platform to get this organization going. We just want to say thank you so much. And we also want to send our gratitude to those who have made it possible becoming part of our Patreon. We want to say thank you. And we do receive your donation for the purpose of WCC platform. Thank you so much. And we encourage you as well to take advantage of the various announcements being passed on from Brother Nkiba to Sister Tiani. Take advantage of them and let do day. Other than that, let's get into it. So today we have 3 things to discuss. On those 3 things, one, Belgium unapologetic about its colonial history in Africa, unapologetic about its influence, colonial influence. So let's bear in mind, DRC Congo have never been free since the 1884 Berlin Conference. DRC Congo have never been free, and they have never been a stable nation since 1884 up to now. So just imagine 1884 to 2022. Imagine the kind of situation people in DRC Congo have been going through. So they have never seen peace since 1884 Berlin Conference of European invasion of Leopold, a notorious criminal, Leopold, king of Belgium, influence in DRC Congo, because imagine he had Congo all to himself as a personal property, as a private property. So what that means is that in DRC Congo, including everything within DRC, the land body, the water body, human being, natural resources, I mean everything, it was a private property owned by a notorious Belgian king, King Leopold. And after his death, around 1908, he gave it to the Belgian state. And imagine again. And then after that, the Belgian state owned DRC Congo till 1960. Okay. And then in 1960, when it had its first ever democratic elected government, with the influence of Belgium and the colonialists as well, and with the influence of the United States, France, Great Britain, and so forth, they assassinated Patrice Lumumba, 81st democratic elected president. And since then, DRC Congo have not seen peace. So that is why we are saying since 1884 Berlin Conference, and we're going to see some of these things going in here, okay? And then we're also going to talk about a white pastor terrorist in South Africa who planned some horrible things. He planned to assassinate the government, and he also planned to do mass killing of African people in South Africa. So how he was going to do it, he was going to do it like poisoning all water bodies that African people use, or South African use in the South African community. So they have planned to poison the water body, water well, or anything of that kind of drinking, right? They plan to poison it to kill a lot of Black South African, or to kill a lot of African. I don't want to say Black South African. We only have African, okay? So we are now going by the definition of the neo-colonial white South African, brown South African, Black South African. All those are division, okay? So we are now going to use the definition or meaning of the European terminology to describe anything of African, okay? Now, so but he was caught, and it was perpetrated, it was planned. So what he did also was he went into the military and recruited people from the military to join him. So if he did that, just imagine it was white people in the military that he was recruiting, okay? So imagine the kind of a plot and plan against African people. And this is a man, he's a missionary, right? He's a pastor, right? He go to preach the word of God, right? So he's a terrorist. Now, and the last thing we're going to be talking about as well, maybe it could be the first, not the last, but another thing we're going to discuss as well this morning is going to relate to Somalia, U.S. influence in Somalia election. And with AU being a puppet, and that because of the Somalia situation, we're going to touch a little bit on Mali, okay? And we're going to give credit to the Malian government. The Malian government is no longer a joint government, but it's a Malian government. So we're going to see that the United States influence in the Somalia election, as usual. What they do, this is how they bring democracy to the African nation, by influencing African elections, okay? So we're going to see that as well, and we're going to see why they influenced the Somalia election, and we're going to see why they wanted the former president to be out of power, and then brought in one president, a guy who was once a president, who was a puppet to the United States, and they brought him back. We're going to see that, and we're going to see why they took the former president out as well. Was two reasons, and we're going to see all of those things here. So good morning to everybody that are sending greeting. Good morning to all of you. Welcome on board. So let's get into it. So the first thing we're going to discuss this morning, we're going to look at Somalia. We're going to look at Joseph Arab Biden redeployment of U.S. troops in Somalia. It sounds good, right? That they're going to fight for African, right? They're going to protect African people, right? They're going to protect the Somalian resources, right? Okay, yeah. It sounds nice, right? On people, in their speeches, they give to the White House, or right, to CNN, ABC, right? It sounds great. But we're going to see some of the things that are behind the redeployment of U.S. troops in Somalia after Donald Trump, the former president, withdrew them from Somalia. So we're going to see some of these things, okay? Let's get into it. All right, so the first article here we're going to read is a thesis that we I'm trying to develop here, okay? So I want you to see something, all right? All right. So there was two reasons, first of all, for the redeployment of U.S. forces into Somalia. It is not because of the protection of Somalian citizens, which of course they never care, and they will never care to protect African people. It is not their priority, okay? It is not their business to protect African people. The redeployment of U.S. troops in Somalia is based on U.S. foreign policies as usual. And the U.S. foreign policies in any country is not to protect that country, is not to protect the interests of that country. The U.S. foreign policy in any country is to protect the interests of U.S. into that country, is to protect what the United States wants in that country, is to have total control of that country, of that territory, of that jurisdiction where they have their foreign policy, okay? Basically, if somebody succeed with their foreign policies in your country, especially when it comes to military, as we've been saying, time with our numbers, it just means you are a colony, okay? And we're going to see some of these things in here today. Now, and it was for two reasons. One, as we all know, U.S., how to call it, Africa or Somalia, Russian or China relationship. And two, the former government, which is not in power no more. I don't want to say vowing, but I will put it this way. The former government vowed to protect the interests of Somalians. And the United States did not want for the former government to vow in protecting the interests of Somalia. Due to that, it was necessary to remove him, according to the U.S. foreign policy. Okay, so let's see here. So it says, what U.S. re-entry into Somalia means for the Horn of Africa and for and for bigger power. What U.S. re-entry into Somalia means for the Horn of Africa and for bigger power. So there's a rivalry in here, okay? So let's continue. I don't want to talk too much on one issue. All right. So it says the U.S. has announced it will resume a limited military presence in Somalia. The former administration withdrawn troops from the country in 2020. That was Donald Trump, President Donald Trump, right? Now, the mission of the American soldier is still what it has been for the last 15 years. And what is that mission? Now, the mission is to advise and assist Somalian forces. To advise and assist Somalian forces. Now, does American military have to be in Somalia to advise? What kind of advice are they going to give to the Somalian military, right? What kind of advice are they going to give? Now, what kind of good advice will a colonizer, will your oppressor, will your enslaver, right, give to you in protecting yourself? What kind of advice will they give you? One who does not want to see you progressing, one who does not want to see you moving on. What kind of good advice will your enemies, let's put it that way, clear cut, no sugarcoating it. What kind of good advice will your enemy give you? What kind of good assistance will your enemy give you to become powerful, to become a self-determined or self-reliant people in society or nation? What kind of good advice will they give you? Because bear in mind, these people have been in Africa, in Somalia since 2002 or even beyond that, right? With the premise of fighting terrorists, right? But they didn't. And they just stated here, right? And this is what Donald Trump saw it. He said, this is a waste of American taxpayer money. We send a lot of truth overseas for the mission, but the mission can never and will not be fulfilled or fulfilled it. And we keep sending or spending American taxpayer dollars every year. So it's a waste of money. Why can't we use that money in America here to solve our problem? And he withdrew the troop, right? Now, so they said to assist, to advise and assist foreign forces or Somalia forces. Now, U.S. troops will not be directly involved in conflict. Now, so if U.S. troops will not be involved directly in conflict in fighting to protect African people, in fighting a terrorist group, in fighting a jihadi, in fighting Al-Qaeda, in fighting Al-Shabaab, in fighting ISIS, whatsoever the situation may be, then why is U.S. forces doing on the African continent? Why is U.S. forces, what are U.S. forces doing in Somalia? Then you better sit down in your country, in the United States, in the divided state, as some people call it, and then get advice, military advice to the Somalian government. It can be over phone, it can be on video, it can be on social media, whatsoever. They will still get it. You can still educate them via social media or video and so forth. Then your presence on the ground and you are not doing nothing. You can stay set in America here and send ammunition to the Somalian government, and they will fight the terrorists. Or better, if you want to assist, which of course I don't support it, you can bring the Somalia here and train them and send them back to Africa or to Somalia, and they will fight the jihadi. But with your presence on a continent or in Somalia, it means something different that you are not telling us. But we are not dumb and stupid. We already know what your presence in Somalia, why your presence in Africa. Because you've been in Somalia since 2002 and you failed to protect the Somalian. You failed to defeat the jihadi, but rather the jihadi defeat the American military. Then how powerful are you if the terrorists defeat you since 2002 and you never win the terrorists? Okay, now let's see here. U.S. troops will not be directly involved in conflict. Their numbers, 450 to 500, is similar than the last deployment. Now, the last deployment or the previous deployment were many. There were more than 450 or more than 500, but they could not win the war. They could not win the terrorists. Then, if there were more than the 450 or the 500, what will a 500 or 450 troop do? America, you are deceiving the Somalians. You are deceiving African people. Withdraw your troop right now, and we're going to give solution to the Somalian. Now, why is the U.S. troop in Somalia? Currently, why Joe Biden saying U.S. troop in Somalia? We're going to tell you that, folks. Now, the decision to redeploy in Somalia might appear to be surprising, of course, for two important reasons. What are those reasons? First, U.S. President Joseph R. Biden promised during his campaign to avoid forever war, against terrorists lasting since 2002. Now, since 2002, again, America have been in Somalia. American military have been in Somalia with the premises of fighting the jihadi along with the Somalian military. But yet and still, both the American military and the Somalian military were unable to defeat a small hand group of terrorists. So are you telling me the American government or military and the Somalian government or the Somalian military now has sophisticated weapon? Oh no, of course they had, because I know America have the sophisticated weapon, whether in the air or on the ground force and air force, to defeat the terrorists, any terrorists for that matter, if they want to. But since 2002, they did not. So are you telling me the terrorist group has more sophisticated weapon, both in air and on the ground? Are you telling me they have drone and they have plane, helicopter, and so forth, that the American government or military could not defeat them? Are they more protected? Are they more sophisticated? Are they more equipped than the American military alongside with the Somalian military? Let's continue. None of these wars were ever fully won. Again, this is what it's saying here. So the American presence in Somalia, none of these wars were ever fully won and remain unpopular with the U.S. electorate. Now, then why is the U.S. sending troops in Somalia? When you have more U.S. troops there, you did not win the war. And then you send in less U.S. troops. You have more, you did not win. Then what would the less do? Let's continue on force. We'll tell you why they're sending forces there currently. Now, it is also surprising in the light of move to restructure the U.S. military to meet a threat from China. Now, this is one reason. There is one reason they are sending their military in Somalia. It is also surprising in the light of move to restructure the U.S. military to meet a threat from China. Folks, listen to the title right here. What U.S. re-entry into Somalia means for the Horn of Africa and for bigger power. And for bigger power. Now, this is why the U.S. sent foreign military in Somalia. Now, why the foreign military in Somalia? Now, again, we have said this and we're going to say this again, okay? Now, Africa is not really free. Africa is colonized. It is what it is. Nobody want to say it, but it is colonized, okay? It is colonized. This just means right here. Now, during the colonization period, right? Everywhere that, for example, France was already based in there, right? It was already under France territory or France control, or what they call the French assimilation, okay? The British couldn't go there because it was already a French territory. Vice versa with them, okay? So this is the same way. With the presence of U.S. military in Somalia, of course, the Chinese will not go there. Of course, the Russian will not go there because it is an American territory. It is an American colony. Okay, it is an American jurisdiction, and so forth that they control, that they have control over. All right. So what that means is that the Somalian government will no longer be in a position to make decisions for the Somalian people or for the interest of Somalia without the approval of America, without the approval of Washington, D.C. And this is what exactly happened around the 1960s, when most African nations were gaining some kind of independence. Right? Now, in gaining independence, they needed financial resources or financial assistance, right? And now, what that means is that before you leave your colonial master, or for example, everywhere that was controlled by France, or everywhere that was controlled by Great Britain, right? Or the United States, like Liberia, before you leave as a government, as a nation, right, as a unit, to go and sign treaty with another entity outside of Africa, right? You have to let your colonial master agree, and your colonial master have to agree before you sign treaty with whosoever you want to. So, for example, if France tell any of the nation in Africa controlled by France, if France tell them, no, you cannot sign a treaty with China, or you cannot sign a treaty with Great Britain or America, it will not happen. So you are a colony. You are subject to that country. And that is what's going on currently. And this is how they are gradually gaining momentum or gaining ground in Africa. Okay? So every one of them are having how do you call it, piece of Africa. Every one of them are having a piece of the cake of Africa. So this is what's going on. So Somalia as a nation, and as a president being put in power, a puppet, he can no longer sign any treaty or agreement with any country outside without the approval of Washington, D.C. And the only country Somalia will sign treaty with, it have to be country that is an ally with the United States. And that country, even as that signing a treaty with an ally of the United States, that means that country will not be a threat to the interests of America in Somalia. So they are not there to protect the interests of African people, but they are there as a colonial institution, to have a colony, to have a territory. Okay? Africa is not free because of the current government, because of the current people we have running for offices who do not understand what freedom is, who do not understand what our forefathers went through, who do not understand, I don't know if they listen or read history. Let's continue. The decision to redeploy in Somalia may appear to be surprising. Okay, I think we read that already. Okay, we read that. Now, what better explain this decision, however, is the renewal emphasis on the old rivalry with Russia since Russia-Ukrainian intervention. Now, listen to this, folks. You know, this colonizer, right? They have the belief that African people cannot read or cannot research, or cannot read to comprehend, or cannot read to understand, right? So they'll do all these things, and they think that we will not find it. They think that we are still living in those days, and then they will come on air to speak not what they actually have planned, but they will come on air to speak thinking that we will buy it, that they are in our interest. But you see exactly what is going on here. Now, the reason why they remove the former president, the reason why America or Washington, D.C. influenced the re-election or the election of Somalia to remove the ex-president. The former president was an ally to Russia. And of course, you know what that means. You know what that means after removing the American military. They was going in for Russian assistance. They was going in for Russian assistance. Let's continue here. And now, since the redeployment, the Pentagon claimed it was partly for operational security. This is what they say. When they go into your country to invade your country, to take advantage of your country, they say it is a special military operation. It is a special military security. And that special military operation of security that they are saying here is to protect American interests. Bear in mind, Somalia have one of the highest reserve deposit of uranium. Folks, you don't even know how rich Africa is. Since the 1884 Berlin Conference, what they have stolen, what the Western world has stolen, has exploited from Africa is nothing compared to what we currently have. They have done nothing to Africa. Africa is untouched. I'm telling you this. Africa is untouched. Do you know currently as we speak, there have been gold found in Uganda, and the price of that gold is between 12 to 20 trillion dollars. 12 to 20 trillions dollars. But what is suffering Africa is lack of leadership. Lack of leadership, leader that we have in power that do not have vision. That do not have vision. The only vision they have is to enrich the colonizer country, to improve the colonizer country. The only vision they have is to forever remain puppets. The only vision they have is to forever remain bourgeoisie. The only vision they have is to forever remain a horse Negro. They feel proud. They feel proud being called those names. They feel proud serving the white men. They feel proud serving their master. They feel proud serving the oppressor to oppress them and further oppress their people. They feel proud of becoming, they feel proud of being called the neo-colonialist. They feel proud when the colonial they exploit them and give them crumbs. They feel proud. Let's continue here. Unofficially, American official, some American official, not American official, but some, again, this article is written by an imperialist, okay? Some American official, not all of them, okay? Some of them do not support the redeployment, and some of them fully support the redeployment, and those people are the colonialists. Now, some American officials have claimed that the redeployment is due to worsening security conditions in Somalia. This argument is open to question. The security situation is in reality relatively stable. The security situation in Somalia is relatively stable. It's not stable since 2002. It have now been stable. There have been chaos. Civilians die. Citizens die. Chaos all over. The enemies or the jihadi or the Al-Shabaab have the most sophisticated weapons than the Somalian army. Then the question becomes, who or where are the Al-Shabaab, the terrorist group, getting the more sophisticated weapon that the Somalian government need to have, but they do not have? The communication system, because when we are talking about, they are so sophisticated, right? The terrorists, the communication system, they do have it. How come? Let's continue here. Military situation in Somalia. I will soon be dropping this article, folks. Anyway, Somalia's security landscape has not changed much since the U.S. pulled out over the previous years. The front line has been the Al-Qaeda, the affiliated Harakat, Al-Shabaab, the Somali government, and the forces of the African Union in Somalia have remained largely the same during the American absence. Now, the situation in Somalia, with or without American presence, is still the same. It's still the same as when America have more troops in Somalia. It's still the same. Nothing has changed. So has the rate of terrorists. Al-Shabaab has not expanded its territory through it, though it does exist, control in areas supposedly under government control. Now, why is this, folks? That thing to us here. Why is this? Why on an area that are under government control? This is where Al-Shabaab or this is where the terrorist group are. You know why? You know why? It's to put government to the extreme so that that government will not be functioning for the interest of the people. That means these terrorist groups are being supported by international influence or entity. Now, let's see one thing here. What has changed is the international setting. Over the past few years, the China-US rivalry has intensified. The China-US rivalry has intensified. And over the past years, the US-Russia rivalry has exploded, partly influenced by the outbreak of the Ukraine war. These rivalries have large-scale impact at the Horn of Africa. Folks, I will stop here. Okay, I'll read one paragraph before I stop here now. These rivalries have large-scale impact at the Horn of Africa. Now, we said this, and I will repeat myself again. African leaders are breeding Africa for external conflict. The African leaders, the African authorities are putting Africa in a situation, in a place where there is going to be a war. For example, let's see this. Do you think these imperialists, these colonizers, they care when they destroy a continent or when they destroy a nation that it is not there? You think they care? They don't care. And I will tell you why they don't care. Ukraine is an example. Do you see how Ukraine is being destroyed? But do you think they really care? They pretend that they care. But Russia have said all she needs is for the Ukrainian authority or government to have peace dialogue with them. But on the other hand, what the colonizers or the imperialists are doing, they are encouraging Ukraine to fight. They are pumping money and they are pumping ammunition. And they are destroying Ukraine. Do you think they care? They don't care. So, when they are fighting in Africa, they won't care to destroy Africa. They won't care to kill African. They won't care. And this is why we speak on some of these things. These leaders are putting Africa in a situation where there are going to be international conflict, where these foreign powers are going to fight. So when they say here, let me read the whole thing. What U.S. re-entry into Somalia means for the Horn. Now, when they say for the Horn, H-O-R-N, for the Horn of Africa, it means Africa being the last hope for the war. The last hope for the war is not America. That's what they are saying here. The last hope for the war is not Europe. The last hope for the war is not Australia. The last hope for the war is not China or Asia. The last hope for the war is Africa, the Horn of Africa. The last place that everybody will fight is Africa. The last place that life will end is Africa. So, to the African leaders, we are asking you to stop putting Africa in a situation that you will not handle tomorrow. Now, let me read the last paragraph here and then we'll get on different things. Okay? Now, we will continue this topic. Okay? But I will get on different article. Now, it is notable that the American redeployment announcement came day after the electoral defeat of Somalia or Somali president Mohammed, also known as Farmajo. The former Somali president was a close ally of Russia. New friend in the Horn of Africa. Now, again, you see why Washington, D.C. influenced the election of Somalia to put in the former president who served from 2012 to 2017, or who was removed by popular demand of the Somalian citizens. Who was removed by popular demand of the Somalian citizens. Because he was corrupt. He was a puppet. He was a horse negro. He was a neo-colonialist to Washington, D.C. And by popular demand of the people, he was removed. He served 2012 to 2017. And he is the same man, Washington, D.C., with the influence of Washington, D.C. having put in power. Now the question becomes for what reason, Mohammed Abdullah Mohammed, also known as Framajo, was removed or was not, or Washington, D.C. did not support him? Was for two reasons. Number one, he was an ally to Russia. Now, this is my question to Washington, D.C. You said you are a democratic nation, but no, most people believe you do not practice democracy. You practice democracy. You say you believe in democracy. You believe in self-determination. Then why can the Somalian government ally with who they want to ally with? Folks, this is what a colony is. When we say Africa is a colony, the continent of Africa is still a colony. This is what we mean. Because African nations are not yet in a position or in a place where they can ally with who they want to ally with. They are not yet in a place where they can make decisions without any fear or influence. And the reason to that is African leaders do not want to emerge. They do not want to come together because of power, greed. They prefer being called president to those individual little nations created by the same colonizer for the 1884 Berlin Conference, divide and conquer. This is Africa we are speaking of. So, why have problem with Somali or with the Somali government for wanting to ally with Russia? Because they realize that America, you are not there to help them. They realize that your presence in Somalia since 2002, it did not yield to any fruitfulness, but rather chaos, destruction, starvation, death, beyond, no improvement. So that is why they have to go in to try another pricing. Okay, now there is something that also named in this article. Let me just talk about it. Let me talk about it. Let me see here. I'm going to take off this article. There is something that named in the article there. And they said, you know, during the situation in Ethiopia with the Ethiopia conflict with Tigray, right? And when masses of Africans came out, both home and abroad, and protest against the interference or the influence of America in supporting terrorist activities or supporting the TPLF, the terrorist group, right? When Africans came out in masses to protest against American influence in supporting the terrorists. In this article, the imperialists called it anti-American. Let me justify that. Let me clarify that. It is not anti-American. Just because somebody favor another person over America, that does not mean that person is an anti to America. And I'm responding to this article. It's in the article. When they wrote the article, that's how they put in that anti-American. Now, just because I do not support your agenda, or just because I do not support your foreign policy, that doesn't mean I am anti-American. It just means I don't support your foreign policy because your foreign policy, it is not within my interests. It is not within the interest of my country policy. Just because people came out, Africans came out in masses, both home and abroad, and they protest against you supporting TPLF, a terrorist group, that does not mean they are anti-American. They are not. It's just because they don't support your A behavior in their society. It's just because your influence in their society is not a good to them. Now, you have seen what went on in this article, that Washington, D.C. wanted for the ex-president to be removed. Two reasons. One, he did not support the redeployment. Or not a redeployment, but he was an ally to Russia. Okay? Now, if Russia coming to Somalia, that means what's happening? And that's how Africa gained, most Africa gained some kind of a independent. When Haiti got independent, that gave green light to African nation, home and abroad, to fight for independence. Nations then believe that smaller nation like Haiti, the continent of Africa, then believe that smaller nation like Haiti, in a southern hemisphere, among the colonizer, surrounded by the colonizer, if they can gain independence, surrounded by the imperialists, surrounded by notorious colonials, evader or exploiter, if they can gain independence, how about the African continent? That gave momentum. That gave the African spirituality the strength for African nation to believe in themselves from the hope of Haiti for Africa to gain independence as we are today. And this is what African leaders are playing fun with. This is what African leaders fail to realize or fail to understand. Had it not been for Haiti to take the stand, where could we be today? So that was one reason. Okay? Now, and that's how Africa gained independence, right? Or the continent of Africa gained independence. So for Mali, taking that stand, if Mali succeed, right? A lot of African nations will do the same thing. So hence for Somalia too was doing the same thing. Somalia too was going to do the same thing. So there was a need to remove this government. The colonizer are still at work. They are not our friend. They were never and they will never be our friend. Now, That's the second reason we're coming to see why this president was removed. The first reason here is he became an ally to Russia. Now, what is the second reason? Follow me. Now, in fact, I'm going to give the second reason. But before we get to the second reason, what I'm showing here today, actually, right? What I'm showing here today, and you are going to see, it all boiled down to want. And what is it? Entitlement. Entitlement. The sense of entitlement. Since the 1884 Berlin Conference, European nation or the Western nation or America, France, Great Britain, Germany, or Belgium, Portugal, the rest of them, they have that sense of entitlement. And whenever you have a sense of entitlement, you put yourself in a situation where those that you feel you have entitlement over, you never want them to think for themselves. Because you feel you own them. Why should they think for themselves? Sense of entitlement. And that also falls within the religion. And we're going to see some of that here today. Entitlement. That also falls with religion. If you can serve any God that doesn't look like you, the image of that person that you serve, that person feel that they have an entitlement over you because you serve an image that look like them and not like you. Entitlement. Let's continue here. We're going to touch religion as well in all aspects to date. Okay? Entitlement. Let's see the next one here. All right, folks. The next article here, as it relates to the ex-Somalian government. Why he was removed. Now, this article is from the VOA, Voice of America. And the title says, Somali government, U.S. company dispute legality of oil deal. Now, the removal of the Somalian government came in after days, a day of Mohammed denying this oil deal. Washington, D.C. became angry and said, then no. First of all, you are an ally. You are becoming an ally to Russia. And then you are now canceling an oil deal. Of course, we know today, into the time, with the situation, with the crisis going on, we know the importance of gas and oil in the life, in the daily life, or in the Western world. Because I don't want to talk about Africa. I don't think African people are enjoying gas, their own resources in Africa. So I would say we know the importance of oil and gas in the Western world. I don't want to talk about Africa. Africa do not know the importance of oil and gas in Africa. African people do not know the importance of oil and gas in Africa. Now, that doesn't mean they don't use it there. But what I'm saying is, they do not know the importance of oil and gas in Africa. Because they struggle for it. In their own land, their own resources. So when the Somalian government, the ex-president, came out to cancel the deal, and first of all, this is what they did. You see, these colonialists, they are so corrupt. these imperialists, these capitalists, they can never succeed or they can never do business with anyone who is straight. They can never do a 50-50 business. So what they did here was, they didn't go to the government directly. They went and bribed other entity within the oil company. They bribed them to carry on the deal. Because they knew coming to the president, he was never going to agree based on the deal. And when it reached to the president's desk, the president said, no, this is the bad deal. He canceled it. And then Joseph Arab Biden said, okay, then we're coming for you. Then what they did was they influenced AU, as we all know. They influenced AU to carry on an election. Folks, since 1969, Somalia have not seen peace. Since 1969, Somalia have not had any election from the people. The people have been unable to vote since 1969. Let's see what's going on here. Now, the Somali government and a U.S. company are locked in a dispute over the validity of an oil exploration agreement reached in February in Istanbul. Now, Adris Shadi Mohammed Ahmed, Somalia Minister of Petroleum and Mineral Resources, and Richard Anderson. Now, so this Richard Anderson is the American, how they call it, representative. And then the Mohammed Ahmed is the Somalia Minister of Petroleum and Mineral Resources. So he was the one that passed through the bribe. They didn't go to the government. They didn't go to the authority, but they passed through this man, bribing. Okay? Now, let's read this. Mohammed Ahmed, Somali Minister of Petroleum and Mineral Resources, and Richard Anderson, the American guy, Chief Executive Officers of Coastline Exploration Limited, signed the agreement, but in separate statement. Okay? They signed the agreement, but in separate statement, unaware of the president. Now, Somali President Mohammed Abdullah Aha Mohammed, known as Framajo, and Prime Minister Mohammed Hassan Rabel rejected the deal, declaring it null and void. It null and void. The deal was the bad deal for the Somalian people. Okay? Now, both leaders cited government decrees and directive banning all ministry and government agency from signing agreement with foreign government and organization until ongoing parliamentary election are finalized. Now, what the former president, former Joe, right? What he did was both leaders cited that. So what he did, he banned everything from going on, from signing any deal. He banned all ministry. He banned all government agency, right? All ministry and government agency, he banned them from signing any agreement with foreign government. He banned them from signing any agreement from foreign government and organization until election was finalized. So Washington, D.C. said this is not going to happen. That's how they influenced the Somalia election. Because in their mind, this president was not going to support their selfish interest. So that's how they came in, and that's how they fought to remove this guy. Now, how did they remove him? They supported, the American government supported the former president who ruled from 2012 to 2017, and that was popularly removed by demand of the people, by protest of the people, who was a puppet to Washington, D.C. So they brought him back. So what they did was, they bribed representative and senator in the house. Okay? They bribed them in the house to vote for the government in power now and to remove Amajo. So in our election, it was a parliamentary election. And you see, let's go back to Mari. This is why I agree with Mari. Okay? This is why I agree with Mari. That there is not going to be election until we sort of things before election. Because you know what? During that time period, the government of Mali will be able to recognize a lot of things, a lot of colonial rules, a lot of colonial agenda in the country, a lot of colonial agenda within the constitution, and change them in order to turn over sovereign rules. A lot of things had to be changed. And this is what this government wanted. And they didn't want that. So with the influence of Washington, D.C. and controlling AU was able to conduct an election, a parliamentary election. And guess what? It was even done in plane, aircraft, where those parliamentary representatives or senators were being protected by AU army. Imagine that. So are you doing it for the citizens? So in our election, 214 voted for the government in power now, and 110 voted for Famajo. That put the president who ran from 2012 to 2017 back in power. And once that happened, what happened? Joe Biden quickly redeployed American military in Somalia. Now, redeploying American military in Somalia, what it means as well, to protect the Somalian government, the current Somalian government, so that he will be able to protect American interests. It's not for the people. It's not for the people. So those American military will sit down right in the capital city in Somalia of Mogadishu to protect the president. Because satellite will be on him 24/7 to see who will come to want to overthrow him, who will come to want to protest. So in other words, he's not the president for the people, but he is a governor serving for Washington, D.C. And that is how most African leaders are. They are not president. We see them as president, but they are governor to their colonial master. Now, this is how America was able to influence the Somalian election through parliamentary, through the parliament, to get this man out of power. Because he banned all government ministry and agency from signing any agreement with any foreign government and foreign organization. So there's a need to remove him. This was how this man was removed, and this was how America influenced the Somalian election, and it took him out, and it put in somebody who was once a puppet to Washington, D.C. Folks, let me tell you this. Let me say this. You know, let's go back to the election I just finished in America here, right? Well, the election I brought in the same Joe Biden. You know, during the time of George Floyd, we'll get back to the topic. During the time of George Floyd death, right? You know, the Democrat, what they did, the Democrat demonized the Republican, right? And the Democrat wore African cloth or African kente. They start kneeling down, right? You know why it for? It wasn't because they fed for African people in America. It wasn't because when they got in, when they get in power, they was going to bring out policies in favor of African people in America. It was because they know how to play it on the emotion of African to get African votes. It was because they know how to play on the emotions of African people to get African votes. That is not to say I supported a Republican, right? But I am speaking reality here. That African people should stop this. People play on their emotion to get them. But after the election, then what then happened? Do we see kente cloth again on President Biden? Do we see kente cloth again on Kamala Harris? Do we see kente cloth again on those representatives that were standing there, kneeling down? Do we see it on them? You do not support African only because you want to gain that emotion. You do not keep playing on the minds of African people. Well, Kante, since that time you got in office or power, have you ever wear Kante? Have you ever wear your kosu with African design on it or African cloth on it or African Kante to your neck? Have you ever? If you are there for African, be there for African. What policy have you put in place that African people were advocating for? And you told African people, if you don't vote for me, you are not African enough. And African people became enough to be African and they voted you. What policy have you put in place to protect African people? Oh, but yesterday, when it happened to the Asian people, in less than 5 months, President Joseph Arab Biden was able to propose a bill, or not even propose, but was able to put bill on the table, was able to pass bill. The House was able, the Senate, they were able to pass bill quickly in less than 6 months to protect Asian, called Asian Crown Bill. Or no, hate Asian Crown Bill, something like that. They passed it quick. You know why they did that? Because no matter how the Chinese live or the Asian people live in America here, they are still Chinese, they are still Asian in their country. And their government still protect them. And their government will hold the United States government accountable. Or they have to give statement of anything happen to any of their citizens. But African people, we do not have a single government in the world to question the American government. Because even with the African continent, they are not together. What kind of African nation will question the American government of treating African people in America here? It can't. This is what we are dealing with. This is the reality of African. This is the reality of Africa that we speak about. Let's get to the next topic. But before we get to the next topic, I want to tell the Somalian citizens, do not be afraid because you have American military presence in Somalia. Freedom does not come easy. They themselves know it. No one gained freedom through morality. No one gained freedom through begging another person. You have to stand up. If it calls us to remove that government, we must. By any means necessary. Let's get to the next topic. Now, the white pastor terrorist. Now, we are going to get to the religion aspect a little bit. For some of you, if you are so into religion, I'm sorry. This is a revolutionary channel. We are not here to sugarcoat anything. We are here to decolonize. And as we are decolonizing, we are also talking about decolonizing the mind. Because we cannot talk about decolonizing the mind of the youth. And you send your children to a Sunday school and you tell them the God that they serve does not look like them. You are not decolonizing the mind. You tell them the God that you serve, the God that died for you, does not look like you. But rather, the devil look like you. The angel does not look like you. But rather, Satan look like you. And you expect that person to love themselves. You expect that person to hate the enemies. That person will become more submissive to the enemies because the God that person serves look like the enemy. The God that person serves, the God that died for that person, look like the oppressor, look like the colonizer, look like the enslaver, look like the enemies. What do you expect? Let's get to religion a little bit. We are here to expose. Those who have ear, let them hear. Let's continue. All right. I'm sorry, guys, but we gotta do this. Okay? All right. Okay, folks. In here is a white pastor. Okay? I'm not going to sugarcoat this. They call other religion terrorists. So why not? If a Christian are like how other religious people can act and they call them terrorists, why not if a Christian act the same way, call the person terrorist? Oh, not because I am a Christian. I put it that way. Not because I am a Christian, okay? And I see a pastor or a Christian behaving in the same way other religions have been demonized just for a propaganda reason. If a Christian do the same thing, if a white pastor do the same thing, or if a pastor do the same thing of any kind, of any category, of any race, right? You are a terrorist. A white pastor terrorist plotted to poison water supply of black community, specifically black community, specifically African community, where African people reside, where African people live. What was this man's motive? This white pastor terrorist, this white terrorist pastor, what was his motive? The pastor wanted to reclaim South Africa for white people. That was his motive. What was his motive of wanting to kill African people in mass or massively? To see African people's body be scattered all around. His motive was he wanted to reclaim South Africa for white people. Reclaim South Africa for white people. That is what make him a terrorist. White pastor terrorist. Again, folks, The sense of entitlement. The sense of entitlement. That is what I got from this research when I was putting it together. Whether politically, whether religiously, all bound together, you can see all of them have the same mindset. Okay? The sense of entitlement. Whether white people work in politics, or whether white people become missionary or pastor, they all have the same mindset, entitlement. The sense of entitlement. His motive was to reclaim South Africa for white people. Let's continue this. Now, a white South African pastor has been convicted after planning to kill thousands of black residents and overthrow the government. You know why he wanted to overthrow the government? Because the government is not going around shooting people like apartheid government. The government is not going around shooting African people like how the British government, the British ruler, when it starts shooting African people in the 90s, killing African people when they were fighting for independence. Because the South African government is not going around shooting the EFF when the EFF is putting African together for elections. When the EFF is giving African a sense of direction, when the EFF is giving African the minds of braveness. So they expected the South African government to go around and be shooting South African for speaking out. Because that is what happened during the apartheid government. When South African gathers in numbers to go around, to voice out, to speak out against the inhumane treatment of the British government, of the British Queen against African people. They went and start spreading African people, killing them. So that is not happening. But in today's society, South Africans are all over, mobilizing, voicing out, going to places, gathering together, giving their speeches, calling on their leaders, and speaking even in parliament. That is not happening. So this white terrorists saw it as a problem. That saw the need of overthrowing the government and killing thousands of Africans. Let's continue. Today, June 6, a jury found 61 years old Harry Johannings Conscience of the National Christian. He's a Christian. He's a religious man. National Christian Resistance Movement, guilty of high treason, recruiting people to commit attack and incitement to carry out violent attack. He's a Christian. He's a missionary. White Christian, white missionary. He is the representation of your God. Your God. Let's continue. The prosecution stated that Coalition put together a group of individuals who thought of ways that a biological weapon could infect and kill black people. Of their ideas, the group discussed the idea of poisoning of water reservoir used by black community. Now, they were brainstorming. These are people that came together. He recruited people and they started brainstorming. Now, in order to carry on this act, first of all, he had to go as a missionary. He had to go as a Christian because, you know, Africa, when they see white men, they feel that heaven has come to them. When they see white Christian, they feel that how they call it, salvation have come to them, right? So they rush to them. So anything this white man says, that's it. That means it's from the above. It's from God. So they believe it. So, by he becoming a Christian, or a missionary, it make it easy for him to go into black community to talk to them, right? And in talking to them, what that means is that he's reading them when they can be in a community to draw water or something that they won't see him, right? So he's carrying on the plan. He's carrying on the plot. So he's making friends with them so that they can believe him as well. So he might even kind of put something in that water and tell them he's putting chlorine in it to clean the water, to make the water fresh. So these are all kind of things that are carrying on, all kind of discussions being discussed here. So they also discuss on carrying on biological weapon. And biological weapons, some of them could be what? Because imagine HIV was a biological weapon to wipe out Africa. If you didn't know that today. Ebola was a biological weapon to wipe out African. If you didn't know that today. Coronavirus, it is a biological, or was a biological weapon to wipe out African. But if you don't know that today. Now you may wonder, then why it did not affect Africa as it affected Europe, right? Oh, karma have many ways of coming back. Oh, it's because most Africans are not praying to the real God than the God that do not answer them. They are not praying to the real God. It's because most Africans have not turned to their ancestor. You know what the ancestor says? Call on our name, we will be there. Call on our names, we will be there. Most Africans are now calling on the name of their ancestor, the name of their forefather. Then the name of the forefather that enslaved and colonized them. They are no longer calling them. You don't believe it? There are more things to happen. So they came out finally that, you know what? It will be easy. We poison the way. We poison the water body that they drink. In addition to those changes, the Middlesbrough High School court, charged the pastor with unlawful possession of firearm at the time of his arrest. Weapon and ammunition were recovered. South African police work with other law enforcement agencies to prevent the attack from happening. Now, let me take this out, okay? Let me take this out. So, this is what went on in South Africa with a missionary, with a pastor, with a Christian. Now, this was the same Bible. This was the same Christianity they used to colonize Africa. Folks, let me tell you something. This whole religion thing, is African culture. Okay? This whole religion thing, this whole Bible thing is not for European. It's African people way of life. It is African people belief system. But the white man went to Africa and was just able to change things around and choose and did some changes and put their picture on it and brought it back to us. Okay, so don't dive into this too much. I'm not saying don't be a Christianity, okay? But I'm just saying just know who you pray to. Just know who you invest in your spirit into. That's all. Because if you can worship anything that does not look like you, then you are worshiping a false idol. That's the bottom line. Anything that you worship that does not look like you, that does not give a representation of yourself, you are worshiping a false idol. That is why the white men, they do not worship anything that doesn't look like them. They can use it as an entertainment. They can go to Africa, right? They use African art. They use African belief or whatsoever as an entertainment. They videotape it all nice now, and then they bring it on the side here, right? They bring it this way or to their world and make money out of it. Go to YouTube, put up there on YouTube, get more viewer, more like, and then they talk about it and make money out of it. They use it as an entertainment. Okay? So do not worship anything that doesn't give a representation of you. Because if you go even into deeper room, if you go into deeper room in Italy, you will see black pictures on the wall, in churches, in worship areas. You will see black pictures on the wall that they worship in Rome. And you know what? Those were the first people that traveled to Africa. Those were the first people that traveled to Africa. Okay? So they have it in Rome there. And they worship it. They have black people on the wall. That how in this contemporary Africa or society, we have white people picture all around. In Rome, deeper part of Rome, they have black pictures, black Jesus pictures on the wall that they worship. Because they know that is the true Messiah. So stop wasting your energy and your spirit into something that doesn't look like you, when indeed you are the true representation of the Messiah. Okay? Let's see a video here, and then maybe I will elaborate on that more. Let's see a video here. Hold on, folks. Let me close it door. All right, let's see a video here. What we're talking about, sense of entitlement, okay? And then I will elaborate on something a little bit. Sense of entitlement. Let's see here. Okay, what I'm about to show you here, it is an American missionary that went to Uganda to preach the gospel and see what he displays. Okay, to preach the gospel. Let's. If you have seen a video.
Update. Here is your latest Africa news update.
Hello, take it. Take it.
Come here. You hate Jesus. You hate yourself. You hate Jesus. You hate yourself. You hate me. You disgrace Jesus. Huh? Talk.
Francis, wacha kupige.
Talk. Talk. Come on, bitch. Come on, whore. You open my fucking room. I'll fucking kill you in this. Sir, he has disgraced Jesus. He has disgraced Jesus. He has disgraced Jesus.
Francis, umpige, toka mbele yake.
Toka. I am not going to tolerate no more. Jesus is not going to tolerate. Yeah, feel me. Fuck Uganda. I've come to love Uganda. I've come to help Uganda. But Uganda hates Jesus through this son of a bitch. You understand me, brother? You understand me? Yes, sir, I know you do. No. You obey what I say. I don't obey you. You understand? Open my fucking room now. You understand? Bitch, nigger, bitch. Look at me. Look at Christ who died for you. Look at me. Look at Christ who died for you. Look at Christ. No. Excuse. No, no excuse. No excuse. No excuse. No excuse. Jesus is tired. Yes. Jesus is tired of your goddamn disobedience. Yes, but feel me. Jesus is tired of your obedience, disobedience. He's tired. No, you fucking come up. I don't calm down. You come up to the Lord Jesus Christ. You fuckers. Why? Why have you hated Jesus? Why have you hated your own souls? You know it. You know it. But you refuse to repent and be saved. Motherfuckers, 3/4 of you are going to fucking die in 3 days. Give me my goddamn card to my room. This motherfucker better work. You understand me? Hey, bitch. Look at me, bitch. Yeah, you're afraid. You goddamn ought to be afraid. Bitch. Nigger, bitch. You're not a human. No. No, you don't. No, you don't.
You give me your key
No.
to make your key.
No.
Then you come fight me?
Yes, I'll fucking knock your fucking life out. Because Jesus is tired of son of a bitches like you. You fucking hate yourself. You hate Uganda. You hate the Lord Jesus Christ. The Lord Jesus Christ is coming upon you with sword and fire. You fucking repent or you fucking die. This motherfucker better work. This motherfucker better work. Hey, you better get all this. All right? In the name of Jesus Christ, Uganda has come under condemnation because they have hated themselves, they have hated their fellow man, they have hated the Lord Jesus Christ. You fucking record that, bitch.
Things I want to discuss here. So again, the sense of entitlement. You saw in this video what this missionary displays. In the video, what he displays, he referred to himself as Jesus. And he said Africans were not humans. He came to save Africa. African people disobeyed Jesus Christ. He was the Jesus Christ. Now, why he refers himself as being the Jesus Christ? Again, because African people serve a God that does not look like them. That does not look like African. But rather they serve a God that look the opposite like them. Like look white. So if this white missionary can come and say he is Jesus Christ, he is Jesus Christ, that Ugandan have disobeyed Jesus Christ, he was right. I don't blame him. I'm not really against him though. I'm not against him. I am not mad with him. I am mad at those who preach to our people. I am mad at those who wrongfully preach to our people. I am mad at those who Sunday school days, they preach Sunday school to our people, to our children, to our kids, to our brother, to our sister, to the little ones. They're the one I'm mad. I'm not mad at him. He's right. In his mind, he's Jesus. In his mind, he's Christ because Christ is white. Christ is the representation of him as African people think. In his mind, he is superior because Christ came through him, through his race. So he is superior. But there's one thing he said. You're gonna have been condemned by Christ. You're gonna have come under condemnation. No, your nation is the one that came under condemnation. It's the one that is under condemnation. It's the one that have been condemned. And if you don't realize it, very soon you will see it. Your nation have been condemned. Your nation have been cursed. Your nation have come under condemnation. Not any African nations. That's the only part I will take from you. That's the only part I don't like what you said. But all the other rest, I don't blame you. Uganda will not and have never, no African nation have ever been condemned, however come under condemnation by the Most High that we know that we worship. Not your Most High. Your nation is the one that have blood on their hands. And your continent. And your nation have come under condemnation and will bear the full weight of it. So I won't really blame you. I blame our preacher. I blame the black preachers. I blame the black Sunday school teachers that teach in Sunday schools. The kind of picture they show out there to the kids. And blame them. I blame the Christian that still believe that December 25th is Jesus Christ's birthday. And when that day reach, they buy Christmas trees, decorate, worshiping false idol. They don't want to blame. They don't want to blame. I don't blame you. Claiming to be Jesus Christ. You're right. You're right. Because African worship a God that does not look like African. That have no tie to African. That's the kind of God you worship. But the Indian worship God that look like the Indian. The Chinese, the Korean, they worship God that look like them. So that means they will not go to heaven. So that means they are condemned, right? You see, the Western form of Christianity is so deceiving. It's full of lies. It's full of satanic activities. But the reality here is Africans are waking up to the truth of who God truly is, or who truly the Messiah is, or who truly the Messiah race came from. Or what race the Messiah actually came from. Africans are beginning to realize it. And they are beginning to call on the true Yahweh. Not the 1600 Jesus Christ. But let's get to the next topic. Let's get to the next topic. So when you have a sense of entitlement over people, that's what can happen. You see it? When you have a sense of entitlement over people, that's what can happen. Even if you see the reality, you will never express that reality because you feel you are entitled to that thing, to that people, to that nation, to that continent. Let's get to the next topic here. The next topic here, folks, as we transition, we will be going to Belgium. Again, folks, since the 1884 Berlin Conference, Belgium have never been freed. And we're going to see that here, since 1884 Berlin Conference, Belgium have never been free. Imagine the notorious King Leopold, the notorious criminal King Leopold of Belgium, the Belgian king who was once a notorious criminal. He owned Belgium as a personal property, as a personal business up to 1908 until his death. And until his death in 1908, he turned his personal property over to the Belgian state, to the Belgian nation. To the Belgian nation. And Belgium controlled DRC Congo from 1908 to the 1960, where Patrick Lumumba fought for independence. And after he fought for independence, and he said DRC Congo will no longer be under Belgian rule, will have self-government, self-governance system, and will determine her own destiny. And DRC Congo will not be the puppet to Belgium. The colonialists came for him and they assassinated him. And they took part of his remains to Belgium. And since that time, folks, since the 60s, Belgium have encountered a lot of chaos, destructions, war, death. You name the rest. Belgium has seen no peace. So then, what did Philip, the current king of Belgium, King Philip, the great-great-grand nephew of the notorious King Leopold? So Philip is a great-great-grand nephew of notorious Leopold of Belgium. What did he do or did he say when he went to DRC Congo? In fact, it was his first time ever going to DRC Congo. Let me say this. Why he went to DRC Congo for the first time? Folks, as we speak right now, these colonizers are coming back onto the African continent and possessing the African continent. They are coming back. So all of them are coming back to possess their former colony or to possess part of Africa in this current time. Because the first article we read, it said what? The horns of Africa. It says what the re-entry or the redeployment of U.S. military forces in Somalia means of the horns of Africa when it comes to foreign or big power. So they are all coming back to their former colony. They want to gain ground. All of them, they are coming back. So some of them will get their former colony back and some of them will not get it. Some of them will lose it. And some of them, when they lose it, other people will come and take that. And that is the United States taking other places now that was colonized by other people. Okay? Only Liberia will not be taken from America. Maybe that will come on another topic, but not today. Liberia is the nation that will not be taken for America. That one, America will do anything. Anything that they will not lose Liberia, because Liberia is a strategic place in Africa. Liberia is a strategic place in Africa when it comes to resources and when it comes to the geographical location of the African continent. Don't mess with Liberia. Liberia is a strategic area on the entire continent of Africa. So no one can take that colony from America. That will be America's last hope. And no one can fight over Liberia with America. So the colonizers are coming back. They are coming to reclaim. So when you see the Belgian King Philip coming for the very first time, so he just became king? No, he been king for a very long time. But why he been silent? Why he have not come? Or he didn't come since long time? Or he just coming right now, recently? It's because of a reason. It's because of the scramble, the last scramble for Africa. He have to come to start all over again. That's why he came. But let's see this here before we can get into it more, okay? Let's see here. Now, this is Philip, the king of Belgium. Again, he is the great-great-grand nephew to the notorious King Leopold of Belgium. The notorious criminal, colonial criminal. The notorious colonial criminal, King Leopold of Belgium. King Philip is the great-great-grand relative. Now, Belgian king expresses deepest regret to Congolese. Now, first of all, let's discuss this. Expressing a deepest regret, that does not mean you accept the guilt. That does not mean you accept the colonial past. That does not mean you take responsibility. I can have a regret, but I don't care. I can have a regret of your situation, but I do not care to help you. That is what's going on here, and this is how we're going to describe this king. I can have a regret of the situation you're in. Oh my God, I regret it. Oh my God, your situation is bad, but I don't really care. Let's continue here. So first of all, this is him right here. And the individual sitting here, the old folks sitting here, this man fought in World War II on the side of Belgium. This Congolese man sitting here, and there's Philip man here shaking this man's hand. He fought in World War II in land of Belgium, on the side of Belgium, and he's still alive today. So he is the last survivor of the Congolese that fought on the side of Belgium. Okay, so Kinshasa, Congo Belgium's King Philip expressed his deepest regret for his nation's abuses in its former colony, Congo, telling lawmaker Wednesday on his first official trip, to the country, that Belgian colonial rules was unjustifiable and racist. His first. He been king for a very long time now. But why this time around is his first trip? Because he's coming to the nation that was once destroyed by his relative. That the wealth that he have today, the riches that he have today, came from the suffering, the killing, the torture, the looting of African people. And then you sit down here and say, my deepest regret, this, that. That's not even a word to describe. Let's continue here. We will get to him a little bit, but let's continue. Although many Belgians were sincerely committed to loving the Congo and its people deeply, the colonial regime as such was based on exploitation and domination. The king told the national legislature in Kinshasa, exploitation, we know all of these. These are not even words that he's supposed to tell African people. We know what went on in Belgium by your forefather was exploitative. We know what went on in Belgium was by domination. We know what went on in Belgium was inhumane. Now put it that way. Stop even saying exploitation, domination. What went on in Belgium was inhumane by your forefather, by a relative of yours. It was inhumane. So this is not something to tell African people. We know it. But what we want to hear, you didn't say it. You did not say it. This regime was that of an equal relationship in its unjustifiable mark by paternalism and discrimination and racism. He said, on the occasion of my first trip to the Congo, right here in front of the Congolese people, I wish to reaffirm my deepest regrets. We don't care. Like, he's still saying something that we don't even want to listen to. I wish to reaffirm my deepest regrets for these past wounds, Philip said, emphasizing the theme of his 6-day visits to the country. Now, let me address this. He said, I wish to reaffirm my deepest regret for these past. This is what I want to look at. These past wounds. No, it is not a past wound. It's still fresh. It's fresh. It smells fresh. What you call past home? Your forefather influence since 1884 up to today have never given DRC Congo peace. And you say past wound? Since 1884, look at the life, the livelihood of the people that live in DRC Congo. And you say past wound? It's still fresh. It smells fresh. It is not a past wound. Because you know what? You even have some of the people that fought alongside World War II for Belgium still alive today, which of course you saw him and you call it fresh. It is not fresh. I mean, it is not past. It's still fresh. Because you know what? You still have relative of Patrick Lumumba alive. His wife still alive. If I may say. His children are still alive. If I may say, and you call it past wound, it's not a past. The generation of Patrick Lumumba are still alive, and you call it past, it is not past. The generation of the 60s are still alive. The generation of 1945 are still alive, and you call it past wound. The generation of the 1900s are still alive, and you call it past wound. It is not past. The colonial institution and rules are still governing DRC Congo, and you call it past wound. It is not past wound. It's still alive and smelling fresh. The wealth and thing that was looted from DRC Congo, that is what made you today one of the richest skink in the world. And you call it past? No, it is not past. It is still alive because you enjoying the glory of the suffering of the Congolese, the killing of the Congolese, the cutting off of Congolese hands, their legs and things, their private parts. You are still enjoying it and you call it past wounds? No, it is not past wounds. Your great-grandparents were notorious. They were criminals. And you are living in a luxurious life today because of what was done to the Congolese people. And you go in there and you say past wound. You go in there and you say it was exploitation. It was inhumane by another human being to commit such crime. If parents could not produce what your father wanted, you cut off their hands or you kill one of the child of that parents and you call it past wound. It is not a past wound. People still live with that memory. People are traumatized. They still live with it. And you call it past wound. It is not past wound. What we wanted to hear, we did not hear you saying it. You said nothing, but you repeated what we already know. And you call it past wound. You did not heal our wound when you came and saw us. And you call it past wound. You reopen the womb. You make it fresh. And you call it past wound. You enjoying a notorious, a criminal wealth. And you call it past wound. Let me take this out. It is not a past wound. It is fresh. And at this time, we do not want apologies. We do not want an apology. You killed a president and you took most of his private part. You have it in DRC Congo and you call it past wound. The wife, the children of these men are still alive in DRC Congo or wherever they are in the world and you call it past wound. You still get body part of this man in Belgium and you call it past wound. You got it in museum and you call it past wound. It is fresh. From the 1884 up to current time, do you know how many Congolese have died? Millions of Congolese have died because of Belgium. And you call it past wound? Up to today, even as we speak right now, Congolese are dying. As we speak right now, Congolese are dying. And you call it past wound? We do not even need an apology. You got trillions of dollars to pay back to the Congolese. You have reparation to pay back to the Congolese. Those are the things we wanted to hear from you. Then to come and tell us what we already know. Don't you know that we Africans know that it was exploitative? We Africans know that it was bad. It was inhumane. Those are things that we know. Don't come and remind us of how your great-father or parent treated African people. We know it. Don't remind us. We already know it. You can go in Belgium and even put that in your school system. But I guess it's not even in your school system of what the notorious criminals Leopold did in Belgium. You don't even teach it in your school system. And then you want to come to us on our continent and remind us of it was this, it was that. We know it. So then what do we want? Pay back what your forefather took from us, that you are living in luxurious life today. Give the people reparation. Give the people reparation. Yeah. All right. It is still French. Like Abby said, and all of us scattered through the so-called diaspora and all of us scatter through the so-called diaspora. Of course, that's what makes it stay fresh. Because Congolese are scattered all over. Those Congolese that are scattered all over, Congo is not yet safe for them to go back home, for them to rebuild their country, for them to rebuild their nation. They are scattered all around. It's still fresh. And you call it past. It is not a past. Congo is still in a situation, even safe drinking water, the people can't get it. The people can't even get food. One meal a day, they can't get it. And you call it a past. It's still fresh. And then you say something that we already know, that we know. And then it came out, you said you gave a speech. We already know what you said. We know all of that. And you ignore what we wanted to hear. Pay the people reparation. And after paying the people reparation, work on taking all those foreign companies in DRC Congo, providing ammunition to terrorist groups so that war activities can be in DRC as they continue to exploit DRC. One of the busiest areas in Africa where plain land and plain people with no airport. One of the busiest areas in Africa where plain land and plain people with no airport. And you call it past wound? Work on 70 DRC Congo and be sure what your forefather did was wrong, was inhumane, was humiliating. Work on that. Get the people reparation. All those family, the wealth that your father stole, notoriously stole and exploited the people, share it with the people. Then we know you are serious. And then work on all foreign military out of DRC, all foreign company out of DRC that are exploiting DRC out of DRC. Then we will know you are serious. But other than that, you are part and part of the problem. We do not need an apology. And first of all, you did not apologize. Because if you apologize, it puts you in a situation to pay reparation. And because you do not want to pay reparation, you are now going to owe to the responsibility of what your people did in DRC Congo, that today you are living on our riches. And you did not go there because you wanted to see the DRC Congo, the Congolese. You did not go there because you wanted to sympathize with the Congolese. You did not go there because you wanted to understand the situation in DRC Congo, what they go through on a daily basis. Almost every day, 40, 50 to 100 people die from different causes. You did not go to sympathize with them. You went there because of the current situation going on in the world. You went there because Africa is the last hope. If any nation in the world today, you do not have a piece of Africa, you do not have a piece of Africa, you will be nobody when that time comes. So indeed, you are coming back to have your Belgian colony back. Yes, because you have puppets in power. Of course. You have puppets in power who only care for themselves and not for the people. So it will be easy for you to get them. Or it will be easy for you to get the colony back. That was your mission in Belgium or in Congo. But I say to the Congolese, I say to the African people, I don't think we should welcome him back. Because the first time he came, he said nothing. He shouldn't be welcomed back. For the atrocity committed in DRC Congo, that today people are still suffering from the aftermath of what happened in that part of Africa. We shouldn't welcome these people. These colonizers were never for, and they will never before. We should recognize that. He shouldn't be welcome on the African continent again, especially in DRC Congo. Let's watch a video here and see how Congo has suffered since the 1884 Berlin Conference and have not seen peace.
Time cannot heal colonial crimes, for instance. We're often told that time heals everything, but that's not always true. Time cannot heal colonial crimes, for instance. The Jallianwala Bagh massacre is still fresh in the hearts of Indians. Congo has not healed from the torture of Belgium's rule. You already know what happened at Jallianwala. Let me tell you about the Congo story. Between 1885 and 1960, 10 million Congolese died. Rather, they were killed by Belgium's policies, be it through forced labor or famines. Belgium orchestrated human rights abuse of the worst kind in Congo, and Belgium is not sorry. Like Britain, Belgium too has just regrets to offer for its colonial crimes. Listen to this.
On the occasion of my trip to Congo, right here, in front of Congolese people and those who today are still suffering, I wish to reaffirm my deepest regrets for those past wounds.
This is Belgium's King Philippe. He was speaking during his first visit to Congo, and this is King Leopold II. He once ruled Belgium. This was between 1885 and 1908. From the day Leopold II came to power, he made Congo his personal property. Congo was turned into a labor camp. People were forced to grow rubber, and everyone was given a quota to meet. While the harvest made Leopold II richer, back in Congo, people's hands were cut off for not meeting their quota. If a family failed to produce enough natural rubber, the hands of women and children were cut off too. Those who resisted the atrocities had their feet cut off. Here too, Belgian troops did not spare women and children. Apparently, chopping off limbs was Belgium's way of proving their superiority over the Congolese. Goes without saying, the people of Congo lived in brutal conditions. Women were raped, tormented. Leopold II oversaw these atrocities. The Belgian king died in 1909. A year before his death, Congo was transferred to the Belgian government. From a personal property, Congo became a colony. But its suffering and humiliation continued. Congo finally became independent in 1960, but Belgium did not let go of its colony easily. Belgium's then king delivered an address celebrating Leopold II, even calling him a genius.
Congo's independence is the achievement of the work devised by the genius of King Leopold II. Congo is reaching this status on this day, the 30th of June, 1960.
When Congo elected its first prime minister, Belgian-backed secessionists assassinated him. In 2002, the Belgian government took partial responsibility for this assassination. Cut to 2022, many in Congo say, while they may be able to forgive Belgium for colonizing their country, the atrocities cannot be forgiven. Earlier this week, when King Philippe landed in Kinshasa, the people of Congo were expecting an apology, and rightly so.
As a Congolese, I can say, welcome to the Democratic Republic of Congo, Your Majesty. But this time, have the courage to say sorry to the Congolese people. The simple regret that you have expressed is not enough, because since the independent state of Congo, with the hands cut off, it is the Congo that bore the weight of 2 world wars for the benefit of Belgium.
Philippe did not apologize. King Leopold II was the brother of Philippe's great-great-grandfather, which makes Philippe not just a successor, but also family.
Let us write this new chapter together without forgetting the past, but by assuming it fully in order to transmit to the new generation.
Well, that's the thing about colonial criminals. They hate accountability. Be it Britain or Belgium, the mindset is the same. Not apologizing for past crimes is their way of bearing uncomfortable history. You know, Belgium's colonial rule is not even taught properly in their own schools. Apparently, the country does not like to talk about its colonial past. Well, I have bad news for Belgium. People will hold Belgium accountable sooner rather than later. Remember, Leopold II's statue was one of the many symbols of hate that people defaced during the 2020 protests. People are rising up against attempts to whitewash history. Sooner rather than later, both Belgium and Britain will have to apologize for their colonial crimes.
Okay, so you watched the video from what you saw there. So since the 1884 Berlin Conference, Congo have never been free because Congo was once a personal property to a notorious criminal, King Leopold of Belgium, up to 1908 to 1909. And upon his death, his will, are you serious? His will, he turned his will over to the state of Belgium because DRC, his property, his personal property, and then he turned his will over to the state of Belgium, to the nation of Belgium, and said, this is my personal property. Take care of it. From personal property of an individual to now becoming a colony to Belgium. So Belgium have never been free. And then, not Belgium, but Congo have never been free. And then Congo was under Belgian rule all the way to the 60s. But a man known as Patrick Lumumba in the 60s to give Belgium its first ever elected democratic president to liberate the nation from a notorious rule, from a notorious colonial rule and criminal rule to self-reliance, self-determination, and to a sovereign nation. He was then assassinated, cut into pieces, eye taken off, teeth removed, part of his body removed and taken to Belgium, and part of his body being burnt. And since then, Congo have not seen peace. Since then, Congo have not seen elections. Since then, Congo have not seen any other body like Patrick Lumumba to fight for the nation, to fight for the people. Since then, Congo have not seen it. Even if there have been anyone to come out to be like Patrick Lumumba, the Western world, America influence, France influence, or British influence, they will come out, and Asia influence, they will come out and take down that person only because that person had the agenda of Patrick Lumumba. And that is what go on in all African nations with the imperialists, as we saw from the first video with Somalia. So since then, DRC have seen no peace. The people of Congo do not even know what peace is. If you ask them to even describe peace, they will tell you, I don't know. But if you ask them to discuss war, chaos, suffering, they will describe it to you. Because that have been their life throughout from the 1800s up to today. That have been their life. You can only discuss something you know about. It's not like peace. They don't know peace because peace is not important, or peace is something that they don't want to talk about. But they don't know it. That is not what they live for. They live through war. So they only know war, and they know the effect of war. That is what they explain to you. But they don't know peace. They have never seen peace. You want to see something, you want to talk about something that you know. You want to speak about something that you have seen. And this Philip went to DRC and spoke nonsense. And you want to talk about what? Since your father or your great-great-father, whosoever took that nation, up to today, people have not seen peace. Do you know how many people die in DRC Congo a day? As we speak right now, people are dying. Either from war, from starvation, from disease, all kind of things. Because life are not being provided for them. And you went there. Instead of you talking about these things, their current situation, you left it. Instead of them asking the citizens, what are you people going through? Instead of you standing there to fight for DRC Congo, to carry peace, and which of course you know you can do it. You left it. And then you're talking about reaffirming friendship. What kind of reaffirming friendship? You and Congo have never been friends. Belgium and Congo have never been friends. Then what kind of friends you reaffirming? The friendship you're talking about reaffirm to colonize the nation again, to start cutting people hand off, to start cutting people foot off? Is that the kind of friend you're talking about reaffirming? Because Belgium and Congo have never had any good friendship or any good relationship. The only relationship they had was you exploit them. You steal their resources. You kill them. You cut their throat, cut their hands, cut their legs. You rape them. That's the only friendship you have with Congo. And you talking about reaffirm. You think we don't know English? Or you think we don't know history? Or you think we don't know our story? You don't change our story and bring it to us. We'd rather tell you our story. You have never had any good relationship with DRC Congo. Then why in your speech you say reaffirm Congo and Belgium relationship? We never had a relationship. Then what kind of relationship are we going to reaffirm? Reaffirm to be under your colonial rules so that you can cut our hands and our foot so that we can go on a plantation, on a rubber farm and things? That's the kind of friendship you're talking about, to reaffirm. But folks, that king has spoken. Do we agree to him? I believe no. Are we going to accept him back in DRC Congo? I believe not. Are we going to accept him back on our continent? I believe not. And not only him. We need to let go of these colonialists. Their intentions are not good and will not be good. They shouldn't come and start speaking English. English is not our language. We learn it, but we know it as well now. So when people speak, we're able to dissect it. We're able to digest what they speak and find the truth in it. And one of that truth is, in his speech, he said one of his reasons for visiting Congo is to reaffirm Belgium and Congo relationship. But the reality here is Belgium and Congo have never had any good relationship, any mutual benefit relationship. What mutual benefit relationship DRC Congo and Belgium have had in the past, or even in the present? Nothing. So the reaffirm relationship he's talking about is for us to give Belgium back to you so that you can do like what your great-great-grandfather did, to cut off people's hands. That's what you want to do? That's a reaffirm you're talking about? To cut off people's hands, to castrate people, to rape people, to starve people? That's a reaffirm of friendship you're talking about. But newsflash, you lie. Newsflash, very soon we are coming for you people. Very soon you will pay reparation. We will force you to accept the truth. Because we know Africa is the last hope. So if Africa is the last hope, we know you guys will come. No matter what, you guys will come. And that's the time you will pay it. So before we end, that will be the last discussion. Before we end, I got a message from Dr. Arikina that I want to give before the broadcast close. Dr. Arikina Chimbori says she have a message for us, and I should bring it to African people to hear it. So let me pull it out. It is just a solution as well. It is a solution from Dr. Arakina. Okay, so I want to let her speak about it because it is a solution given to the African continent. It is a solution given to the African leaders. It is a solution given to the African authorities for Africa, home and abroad. Okay, so she said it better than me.
To the organizers and members of NIDOR Canada, thank you for inviting me to be part of this very important event. My name is Ambassador Arakana Chiumbori Kwao. I'm talking to you from Zimbabwe in Africa. Today, you all are engaging in a program called Elevate, a program that's engaging in a conversation on how to accelerate emerging leaders in Africa. What an important topic. Africa today has over 60% of young people under the age of 20. It is therefore imperative that we begin to groom and raise our future leaders out of that young population. But the challenges we face in doing so have a lot to do with centuries of brainwashing that we have undergone. There's no point in having leaders who will continue to be brainwashed, leaders who are going to continue to feel inferior, leaders who don't understand how we got to be where we are today as a people. So as we begin the journey of grooming emerging leaders, let us get to the genesis of why we feel the way we do as people of African descent. Why do we automatically feel inferior? Well, to get you to understand exactly where we are, let me give you some few examples that keep me awake sometimes. When you look at the blatant abuse of not only Africans on the continent, but all people of African descent around the world, why is it that we are unable to stand up and speak up and push back just like other races do? You take, for example, as I'm speaking to you today from Zimbabwe, our ancestors, namely Mbuyane and Kaguvi, who were murdered by the British centuries ago, their remains are still in jars in Europe today. When Zimbabwe became independent in 1980, that was one of the very first things the leaders did, is to request the remains of our ancestors for proper burial. Fast forward 2022, those remains are still sitting in jars in the United Kingdom. Zimbabwe is not alone. Many African countries, our ancestors are littering basements in Europe in jars. They're refusing to give us back our ancestors for proper burial. How long do you think a finger of a British soldier lasts in Zimbabwe? How long do you think a finger of a German soldier lasts in Namibia? How long do you think a thumb of a Portuguese soldier lasts in Angola? A French soldier in Algeria? Not even an hour. They would storm into those countries, kill thousands of people, only to recover those little fingers. But in our case, because it's Africans, oh, who cares? So it is, we're not able to push back, fight back, to address some of those very, very basic abuses of human rights. Let's look at the World Bank. As I speak to you from Zimbabwe today, 6.5 billion of Zimbabwe's 11 billion GDP goes towards loan repayment. 6.5 billion out of 11 billion goes towards loan repayment. That is unacceptable and it's not sustainable. Zimbabwe is not alone. Many other countries in Africa, on the average, 33 to 40% of the country's GDPs are going towards loan repayment. Let's look at the unfair practices coming out of the World Trade Organization, where for centuries we've not been allowed to add value to our natural resources, where it was strategically put in place a system to make sure that Africa is a provider of natural resources with no added value. We create labor, we create jobs for the Western world, while our own children, millions of them, are struggling. Those are some of the basic things that I feel, just simple example, how we could fight back, how we could push back, which is really the natural and normal thing to do, but we're unable to do so. Why? In some cases, we're just afraid. We're afraid of sitting in front of another person who doesn't look like us, and we suddenly become mute. We have multinationals who are robbing Africa in broad daylight, billions of dollars getting out of Africa. Safe havens, they underreport what they have mined, and of what they have reported, they're reporting having sold for much less than what they actually sold for. The abuse is blatant, from illegal mining to illegal sale of wildlife. You name it, the abuse is everywhere. The NGOs who come to Africa for the sake of exploiting the continent in the name of saving the continent. I'm highlighting some of the few abuses because if our young people are going to be leaders of tomorrow, they need to know today, they need to understand today what is being done to our beloved continent. Otherwise, there'll simply be other leaders who are going to be raised to be afraid of those who don't look like us. Let's go back to the genesis of why we were being called black. We were not black before the Westerners came to Africa. They were not white before they came to Africa. Think about it. When they came to teach us colors in school, there were so many other colors: yellow, green, orange, black, white. But they only chose two colors to assign attributes to. There was the color black, and everything bad, including the devil, was black. And then they turn around and then say, you Africans, you're also black just like the devil. And we said, okay. We never questioned it. And they told us about the color white. And they taught us that the color white was pure and beautiful, everything wonderful and desirable is white. And the angels in heaven are white. And oh, by the way, while we may not look like this white sheet of paper, we too are white like the angels. And we said, okay. And so it is, the root for white supremacy was set, where we were automatically, subliminally taught to feel inferior. This happened centuries ago. 2022, we're still suffering from that simple first lie, I call it. It's a blatant lie. Nobody is white. They're sort of pinkish color. And we're not black either. We're variations of brown. But the reason there was the emphasis of black and white is so once and for all they can make us feel inferior and they feel superior. White supremacy is a serious issue. So as we tackle the issue of leadership in Africa, let's start with our young people knowing the truth and nothing but the truth. So when our young people are informed and they understand the root causes of why Africa is where Africa is today, we will be raising young people, future leaders who will truly turn the corner and bring to the future an Africa that can stand up on herself, an Africa that can defend herself, an Africa that's going to say no to continued exploitation, an Africa that has young people who say enough is enough. We are not inferior to anybody. We're not afraid of anybody. If the truth be told, we're the mothers and fathers of humanity. Without the African, there would not be humanity as we know it. So who is to tell us we're inferior? If only our children could understand that. And the onus is on us, adults, to tell them the truth. Our children have been lied to for far too long. Let's raise them to know that they're just as good as anybody else. They're just as intelligent as anybody else. They're just as beautiful as anybody else on earth. But more importantly, Africa is who gave birth to humanity. Africa is where everything the world is going to for their needs. There's not a single strategic planning session by the West or the East that doesn't start with Africa. Because in Africa, everything that they need is and can be found in Africa. So let's be clear about one thing. As we talk about raising and accelerating future leaders, let's know our history. Let's understand the true geopolitics of why Africa is where it is today. And when we do that, we'll be raising young people who are well-informed, well-equipped with nothing but truth. And that's where you and I come in. We have let our children down as elders. We have a responsibility to educate them and prepare them and let them know that they have strong shoulders to stand on when they become future leaders. May I challenge all of you, my fellow brothers and sisters, that if we were to imagine in Africa 20 years from now, your son, your daughter, your grandchildren, they're going to come to you and say, Grandpa, Grandma, there were issues with us as a people of African descent, outside Africa and within Africa. What did you do, Grandma? What did you do, Grandpa? I would hope that your answer is not going to be nothing. I want to ask all of you, what have you done to make a difference in Africa? JFK said, ask not what your country has done for you, but rather what you have done for your country. I'm asking all of you today, what have you done for Africa? What have you done to change the narrative for us, people of African descent? How are you preparing yourself to answer that question from your granddaughter, from your grandson, from your son, grandmother, grandfather, mom, dad? What did you do? I don't know about you, but I'm not prepared to exit this world the way it is. I'm not about ready to live the way it is for my children, grandchildren, and generations to come. So yes, those conversations that must start at the dinner table, the onus is on us as mothers, as fathers, as grandparents. Let's teach our children the truth. Let's raise future leaders who are fully equipped to lead the Africa of tomorrow. The Africa that we want, the sustainable Africa that we want, can only be built by those who understand what is really going on in Africa and the truth.
Okay, so you heard what she said. She said it better than me. That's why I thought on bringing this video to the group. So you heard it, what she said exactly. So I'm not even going to add to what she said before I miss, what she said and so forth. It's just going to leave as it is, as the messages have been passed on to us. Okay, so let me get a shout out to Senung for your contribution. Shout out to Senung for your contribution. WCC will receive it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the contribution to WCC. All right. So That's it. What she said, I'm not like I said, going to explain further of what she said. Okay, so it's clear for messages, it's touching, and to African leaders and to leaders in authority, and even to us as well, ordinary people who are not in power but who have the ability to educate, who have resources at their disposal to give to African people and to educate, even in your own home, right? You can educate your children than waiting for some national holiday and then tell them, oh, today is this holiday, let's go to the store, let me buy you something, and that's it. And they don't even understand what that holiday stands for, and you buying them stuff and things, right? Like Juneteenth. Juneteenth is coming, right? So I know a lot of people will take their children to the mall or to the store to go and put money in the pocket of the colonialists, right? But you will even educate that child instead of you taking that child and buying their Juneteenth and give and so forth, which is good. But that money is going to the neo-colonial, it's going to the capitalists, and that is what they want it for. But the best is buy them book relating to Juneteenth and educate them about Juneteenth, right? And so that they can be a great future leader as well. So we ourselves, even we are not in authority, we are not in power, but we can still contribute as well. And those people in power, in authority, African leaders and so forth, the message is also for you to lay down a platform to create an environment, an atmosphere, to create the next generation of African leaders to come and continue with the rooting of the continent. Like I said, I don't want to go deeply into it because she explained it very well and we got it. So folks, thank you today for being on here. We started 10 o'clock and it's already 12:36, almost 1 p.m. Before I go, as we usually do, I just want to say thank you so much for being on here. Share it as you can to any group, to any individual as you can, and tell them to subscribe. Tell them to join this family. Let me say this. This channel is called a Revolutionary Repatriation Educational Lecture Series, okay? It is a revolutionary channel. So we make that clear, and we owe no apology for it being a revolutionary channel, okay? So when you come here, just make sure you are a revolutionary, okay? So we say that, and we say that clear, and we owe no apology for being a revolutionary, okay? So thank you for your contribution for WCC, and we want to tell all those that have joined our Patreon, thank you. All those that have sent their monthly contribution, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, and continue to support the organization and continue to read information on our website as well. Again, listen, folks, we read our own story, okay? So we cannot say we want to liberate or free the African continent and African people, and we continue to take the story of other people who do not look like us, right? Who read their story in their own interest. So we read our own story. So go on our website, check it out. We have great writer. You will see their names and so forth are there. They write, and go check it out, read them, as we work to decolonize the mind and as we work to free Africa and African people. So once again, thank you, and I will see you all next week.